Hello everyone, and welcome back to Project Moon Audiobooks. Today's episode is part 5 of the Odyssey. This will cover books 10, 11, and 12. I hope you enjoy. Book 10, The Winds and the Witch. We reach the floating island of Outis, who is well loved by all the deathless gods. Around it, on sheer cliffs, there runs a wall of solid bronze, impregnable. 12 children live with him in his palace, 6 strong boys and 6 girls. He arranged their marriages, 1 sister to each brother. They are always feasting there with their parents, at a banquet that never ends. By day, the savor fills the house. The court reverberates with sound. At night they sleep beside the wives they love on rope beds piled with blankets. We arrived at that fine citadel. He welcomed me and made me stay a month, and asked for news of Troy, the Argive ships, and how the Greeks went home. I told him everything. At last I told him he should send me on my way. So he agreed to help me, and he gave me a bag of oxhide leather, and he tied the gusty winds inside it. Zeus, the son of Cronus, made him steward of the winds, and he can stop or rouse them as he wishes. He bound the bag with shining silver wire to my curved ship, so no gust could escape, however small, and he made Zephyr blow so that the breath could carry home our ships and us. But it was not to be. Our folly ruined us. For 9 days and nights we sailed, and on the 10th our native land appeared. We were so near. We saw men tending fires. Exhausted, I let sweet sleep overcome me. I had been doing all the steering, hoping that we would get home sooner if I did. But while I slept, my men began to mutter, saying the great Outis gave me gifts, silver and gold that I was taking home. With glances to his neighbor, each complained, "It seems that everybody loves this man and honors him in every place we sail to. He also has that loot from sacking Troy. We shared the journey with him, yet we come back home with empty hands. And now Outis has made this friendly gift to him. So hurry, we should look into the bag and see how much is in there. How much silver, how much gold." That bad idea took hold of them. They did it. They opened up the bag, and all the winds rushed out at once. A sudden buffet seized us and hurled us back to sea, the wrong direction, far from our home. They screamed, and I woke up, and wondered if I should jump off the ship and drown, or bite my lip, be stoical, and stay among the living. I endured it, covered my face, and lay on deck. A blast of storm wind whooshed the ships back to the island of great Outis. They began to weep. We disembarked and filled our jars with water, and hungrily the men devoured their dinner. When they were done, I took 1 slave with me and 1 crew member, back to see Outis. He was at dinner with his wife and children. We entered and sat down beside the doorposts. Startled, they asked, "Why are you here again? You had bad luck? What happened? Surely we helped you go on your way and meant for you to reach your homeland, where you wish to go." I answered sadly, "Blame my men, and blame my stubborn urge to sleep, which ruined us. Dear friends, you have the power to put things right." I hoped these words would soften them, but they were silent. Then the father yelled, "Get out! You nasty creature! Leave my island, now! It is not right for me to help convey a man so deeply hated by the gods. You god-forsaken thing, how dare you come here? Get out!" He roared and drove us from his palace. Dispirited, we sailed away. The men grew worn out with the agony of rowing. Our folly had deprived us of fair winds. We rowed 6 days and nights. The 7th day we came to Laestrygonia, the town of Telepylus upon the cliffs of Lemos. A herdsman there, returning to his home, can greet another herdsman going out. A sleepless man could earn a double wage by herding cows, then pasturing white sheep. The paths of day and night are close together. We reached the famous harbor, all surrounded by sheer rock cliffs. On each side, strips of shore jut out and almost meet, a narrow mouth. No waves rear up in there, not even small ones. White calm is everywhere. So all the others harbored their ships inside, crammed close together. I was the only one who chose to moor my ship outside the harbor, fastening the cables to a rock away. I disembarked and climbed a crag to scout. I saw no sign of cattle or of humans, except some smoke that rose up from the earth. I picked 2 men, and 1 slave as the third, and sent them to find out what people lived and ate bread in this land. They disembarked and walked along a smooth path, where the wagons brought wood down from the mountains to the city. They met a girl in front of town, out fetching some water. She was heading for the fountain of Artiki, the whole town's water source. She was the strapping child of Antiphates, king of the Laestrygonians. They asked her about the king and people of the country. She promptly took them to the high-roofed palace of her own father. When they went inside, they found a woman mountain high. They were appalled and shocked. The giantess at once summoned the king, her husband, from the council. He tried to kill my men, and grabbing one, he ate him up. The other 2 escaped, back to the ship. The king's shout boomed through the town. Hearing, the mighty Laestrygonians thronged from all sides, not human-like, but giants. With boulders bigger than a man could lift, they pelted at us from the cliffs. We heard the dreadful uproar of ships being broken and dying men. They speared them there like fish. A gruesome meal. While they were killing them inside the harbor, I drew out my sword and cut the ropes that moored my dark-cheeked ship, and yelling to my men, I told them, "Row as fast as possible away from danger." They rowed at double time, afraid to die. My ship was lucky, and we reached the sea beyond the overhanging cliffs. The rest, trapped in the bay together, were destroyed. We sailed off sadly, happy to survive, but with our good friends lost. We reached Aea, home of the beautiful, dreadful goddess Circe, who speaks in human languages, the sister of Autis, whose mind is set on ruin. Those 2 are children of the sun who shines on mortals, and of Perse, child of ocean. Under the guidance of some god, we drifted silently to the harbor, and we moored there. For 2 days and 2 nights we lay on shore, exhausted, and our hearts consumed with grief. On the 3rd morning, brought by braided dawn, I took my spear and sharp sword, and I ran up from the ship to higher ground, to look for signs of humans, listening for voices. I climbed up to a crag, and I saw smoke rising from Circe's palace, from the earth up through the woods and thickets. I considered if I should go down and investigate, since I had seen the smoke. But I decided to go back down first, to the beach and ship and feed my men, and then set out to scout. When I had almost reached my ship, some god took pity on me in my loneliness, and sent a mighty stag with great tall antlers to cross my path. He ran down from the forest to drink out of the river. It was hot. I struck him in the middle of his back. My bronze spear pierced him. With a moan, he fell onto the dust. His spirit flew away. I stepped on him and tugged my bronze spear out and left it on the ground, while I plucked twigs and twines and wove a rope, a fathom's length, well knotted all the way along, and bound the hooves of that huge animal. I went down to my dark ship with him on my back. I used my spear to lean on, since the stag was too big to be lugged across one shoulder. I dumped him down before the ship and made a comforting pep talk to cheer my men. "My friends, we will not yet go down to Hades, sad though we are, before our fated day. Come on, since we have food and drink on board, let us not starve ourselves. Now, time to eat." They quickly heeded my commands, and took their cloaks down from their faces, and they marveled to see the big stag lying on the beach. It was enormous. When they finished staring, they washed their hands and cooked a splendid meal. So all that day till sunset we sat eating the meat aplenty and the strong, sweet wine. When darkness fell, we went to sleep beside the seashore. Then the roses of dawn's fingers appeared again. I called my men and told them, "Listen to me, my friends, despite your grief. We do not know where darkness lives, nor dawn, nor where the sun that shines upon the world goes underneath the earth, nor where it rises. We need a way to fix our current plight, but I do not know how. I climbed the rocks to higher ground to look around. This is an island, wreathed about by boundless sea. The land lies low. I saw smoke in the middle, rising up through the forest and thick bush." At that their hearts sank, since they all remembered what happened with the Laestrygonians, their king Antiphates, and how the mighty Cyclops devoured the men. They wept and wailed, and shed great floods of tears. But all that grieving could do no good. I made them wear their armor, and split them in 2 groups. I led one, and made godlike Eurylochus lead the other. We shook the lots in a helmet made of bronze. Eurylochus's lot jumped out. So he went with his band of 22, all weeping. Those left behind with me were crying too. Inside the glade they found the house of Circe, built out of polished stones, on high foundations. Round it were mountain wolves and lions, which she tamed with drugs. They did not rush on them, but gathered around them in a friendly way, their long tails wagging, as dogs nuzzle round their master when he comes back home from dinner, with treats for them. Just so, those sharp-clawed wolves and lions, mighty beasts, came snuggling up. The men were terrified. They stood outside and heard some lovely singing. It was Circe, the goddess. She was weaving as she sang, an intricate, enchanting piece of work, the kind a goddess fashions. Then Polites, my most devoted and most loyal man, a leader to his peers, said, "Friends, inside someone is weaving on that massive loom, and singing so the floor resounds. Perhaps a woman, or a goddess. Let us call her." They shouted out to her. She came at once, opened the shining doors, and asked them in. So thinking nothing of it, in they went. Eurylochus alone remained outside, suspecting trickery. She led them in, sat them on chairs, and blended them a potion of barley, cheese, and golden honey, mixed with Pramnian wine. She added potent drugs to make them totally forget their home. They took and drank the mixture. Then she struck them, using her magic wand, and penned them in the pigsty. They were turned to pigs in body and voice and hair. Their minds remained the same. They squealed at their imprisonment, and Circe threw them some mast and cornel cherries, food that pigs like rooting for in muddy grounds. Eurylochus ran back to our black ship to tell us of the terrible disaster that happened to his friends. He tried to speak, but could not, overwhelmed by grief. His eyes were full of tears. His heart was pierced with sorrow. Astonished, we all questioned him. At last he spoke about what happened to the others. "Odysseus, we went off through the woods, as you commanded. In the glade we found a beautiful tall house of polished stone. We heard a voice. A woman, or a goddess, was singing as she worked her loom. My friends called out to her. She opened up the doors, inviting them inside. Suspecting nothing, they followed her. But I stayed there outside, fearing some trick. Then all at once, they vanished. I sat there for a while to watch and wait, but none of them came back." At this, I strapped my silver-studded sword across my back, took up my bow, and told him, "Take me there." He grasped my knees and begged me tearfully, "No, no, my lord, please do not make me go. Let me stay here. You cannot bring them back, and you will not return here if you try. Hurry, we must escape with these men here. We have a chance to save our lives." I said, "You can stay here beside the ship and eat and drink, but I will go. I must do this." I left the ship and shore and walked on up, crossing the sacred glades, and I had almost reached the great house of the enchantress Circe when I met Hermes, carrying his wand of gold. He seemed an adolescent boy, the cutest age, when beards first start to grow. He took my hand and said, "Why have you come across these hills alone? You do not know this place, poor man. Your men were turned to pigs in Circe's house and crammed in pens. Do you imagine you can set them free? You cannot. If you try that, you will not get back home. You will stay here with them. But I can help you. Here, take this antidote to keep you safe when you go into Circe's house. Now I will tell you all her lethal spells and tricks. She will make you a potion mixed with poison. Its magic will not work on you, because you have the herb I gave you. When she strikes you with her long wand, then draw your sharpened sword and rush at her as if you mean to kill her. She will be frightened of you, and will tell you to sleep with her. Do not hold out against her. She is a goddess. If you sleep with her, you will set free your friends and save yourself. Tell her to swear an oath by all the gods that she will not plot further harm for you, or while you have your clothes off, she may hurt you, unmanning you." The bright mercurial god pulled from the ground a plant and showed me how its root is black, its flower white as milk. The gods call this plant moly. It is hard for mortal men to dig up, but gods are able to do everything. Then Hermes flew through the wooded island back towards high Mount Olympus. I went in the house of Circe. My heart pounded as I walked. I stood there at the doorway, and I saw her, the lovely Circe with her braided hair. I called. She heard and opened up the doors and asked me in. I followed nervously. She led me to a silver-studded chair, all finely crafted, with a footstool under. In a gold cup she mixed a drink for me, adding the drug. She hoped to do me harm. I sipped it, but the magic did not work. She struck me with her wand and said, "Now go, out to the sty, and lie there with your men." But I drew my sharp sword from by my thigh and leapt at her as if I meant to kill her. She screamed and ducked beneath the sword, and grasped my knees, and wailing asked me, "Who are you? Where is your city? And who are your parents? I'm amazed that you could drink my potion and yet not be bewitched. No other man has drunk it and withstood the magic charm. But you are different. Your mind is not enchanted. You must be Odysseus, the man who can adapt to anything. Bright flashing Hermes of the golden wand has often told me that you would sail here from Troy in your swift ship. Now sheathe your sword and come to bed with me. Through making love we may begin to trust each other more." I answered, "Circe, how can you command me to treat you gently when you turn my men to pigs, and you are planning to play tricks in telling me to come to bed with you, so you can take my courage and my manhood when you have got me naked? I refuse to come to bed with you unless you swear a mighty oath that you will not form plans to hurt me any more." When I said that, at once she made the oath as I had asked. She vowed and formed the oath, and then at last I went up to the dazzling bed of Circe. Meanwhile, 4 slaves, her house girls, were at work around the palace. They were nymphs, the daughters of fountains and of groves and holy rivers that flow into the sea. One set fine cloths of purple on the chairs, with stones beneath them. Beside each chair, another pulled up tables of silver and set golden baskets on them. The third mixed up inside a silver bowl sweet, cheering wine, and poured it in gold cups. The fourth brought water, and she lit a fire beneath a mighty tripod till it boiled. It started bubbling in the copper cauldron. She took me to the bathtub, and began to wash my head and shoulders, using water mixed to the perfect temperature, to take my deep, soul-crushing weariness away. After the bath, she oiled my skin and dressed me in fine wool cloak and tunic, and she led me to a silver-studded, well-carved chair, and set a footstool underneath. Another slave brought water from my hands, in a gold pitcher, and poured it over them, to a silver bowl. She set a polished table near. The cook brought bread and laid a generous feast, and Circe told me to eat. But my heart was unwilling. I sat there with my mind on other things. I had forebodings. Circe noticed me sitting, not touching food, and weighed by grief. She stood near me and asked, "Odysseus, why are you sitting there so silently, like someone mute, eating your heart, not touching the banquet or the wine? You need not fear. Remember, I already swore an oath." But I said, "Circe, no! What decent man could bear to taste his food or sip his wine before he saw his men with his own eyes and set them free? If you are so insistent on telling me to eat and drink, then free them, so I may see with my own eyes my crew of loyal men." So Circe left the hall holding her wand, and opened up the pigsty and drove them out, still looking like fat boars, large and full-grown. They stood in front of her. Majestic Lady Circe walked among them, anointing each with some new drug. The potion had made thick hog hairs sprout out on their bodies. Those bristles all flew off, and they were men, but younger than before, and much more handsome, and taller. Then they recognized me. Each embraced me tightly in his arms, and started sobbing in desperation. So the house rang loud with noise, and even she herself pitied them. She came near to me and said, "Odysseus, you always find solutions. Go now to your swift ship beside the sea. First, drag the ship to land, and bring your stores and all your gear inside the caves. Then come back with your loyal men." My heart agreed. I went down to my swift ship on the shore. I found my loyal men beside the ship, weeping and shedding floods of tears. as when a herd of cows is coming back from pasture into the yard, and all the little heifers jump from their pens to skip and run towards their mothers, and they cluster round them, mooing. Just so my men, as soon as they saw me, began to weep, and in their minds it seemed as if they had arrived in their own home, the land of rugged Ithaca, where they were born and raised. Still sobbing, they cried out, "Oh, master, we are glad to see you back. It is as if we had come home ourselves, to Ithaca, our fatherland. But tell us about how all our other friends were killed." I reassured them, saying, "First we must drag up the ship to land, and put the stores and all our gear inside the caves. Then hurry, all of you, come with me, and see your friends inside the goddess Circe's holy house, eating and drinking. They have food enough to last forever." They believed my story, with the exception of Eurylochus, who warned them. "Fools! Why would you go up there? Why would you choose to take on such danger, to enter Circe's house, when she will turn us to pigs or wolves or lions, all of us, forced to protect her mighty house for her? Remember what the Cyclops did? Our friends went to his home with this rash lord of ours. Because of his bad choices, they all died." At that, I thought of drawing my long sword from by my sturdy thigh to cut his head off and let it fall down to the ground, although he was close family. My men restrained me, saying to me, "No, king, please let him go. Let him stay here and guard the ship, and we will follow you to Circe's holy house." So they went up, away from ship and shore. Eurylochus did not stay there. He came, fearing my angry scolding. Meanwhile, Circe had freed the other men, and in her house she gently bathed them, rubbing them with oil. She had them dressed in woolen cloaks and tunics. We found them feasting in the hall. The men, seeing each other face to face again, began to weep. Their sobbing filled the hall. The goddess stood beside me and said, "King, clever Odysseus, Laertes' son, now stop encouraging this lamentation. I know you and your men have suffered greatly, out on the fish-filled sea and on dry land from hostile men. But it is time to eat and drink some wine. You must get back the drive you had when you set out from Ithaca. You are worn down and broken-hearted, always dwelling on pain and wandering. You never feel joy at heart. You have endured too much." We did as she had said. Then every day for a whole year we feasted there on meat and sweet strong wine. But when the year was over, when months had waned and seasons turned, and each long day had passed its course, my loyal men called me and said, "Be guided by the gods. Now it is time to think of our own country, if you are fated to survive and reach your high-roofed house in your forefathers' land." My warrior soul agreed. So all day long till sunset we kept sitting at the feast of meat and sweet strong wine. But when the sun set and the darkness came, they went to bed all through the shadowy palace. I went up to Circe's splendid bed and touched her knees in supplication, and the goddess listened. "Circe," I said, "fulfill the vow you made to send me home. My heart now longs to go. My men are also desperate to leave. Whenever you are absent, they exhaust me with constant lamentation." And she answered, "Laertes' son, great King Odysseus, master of every challenge, you need not remain here in my house against your will. But first you must complete another journey. Go to the house of Hades and the dreadful Persephone, and ask the Theban prophet, the blind Tiresias, for his advice. Persephone has given him alone full understanding, even now in death. The other spirits flit around as shadows." That broke my heart, and sitting on the bed I wept, and lost all will to live and see the shining sun. When I was done with sobbing and rolling round in grief, I said to her, "But Circe, who can guide us on this journey? No one before has ever sailed to Hades by ship." And right away the goddess answered, "You are resourceful, King Odysseus. You need not worry that you have no pilot to steer your ship. Set up your mast, let fly your white sails, and sit down. The north wind's breath will blow the ship. When you have crossed the stream of ocean, you will reach the shore, where willows let fall their dying fruit, and towering poplars grow in the forest of Persephone. Tie up your ship in the deep eddying ocean, and go into the spacious home of Hades. The Pyriphlegethon and Cocytus, a tributary of the Styx, both run into the Acheron. The flowing water resounds beside the rock. Brave man, go there, and dig a hole a cubit wide and long, and round it pour libations for the dead. First honey mix, then sweet wine, and the third of water. Sprinkle barley, and beseech the spirits of the dead. Vow if you reach the barren land of Ithaca to kill a heifer in your halls, the best you have, uncalved, and you will heap the fire with meat, and offer to Tiresias alone a ram, pure black, the best of all your flock. When you have prayed to all the famous dead, slaughter one ram and one black ewe, directing the animals to Erebus, but turn yourself away, towards the gushing river. Many will come. Then tell your men to skin the sheep that lie there killed by ruthless bronze, and burn them, with a prayer to mighty Hades and terrible Persephone. Then draw your sword and sit. Do not let them come near the blood, until you hear Tiresias. The prophet will soon come, and he will tell you about your journey, measured out across the fish-filled sea, and how you will get home. Dawn on her golden throne began to shine, and Circe blessed me in my cloak and tunic. The goddess wore a long white dress of fine and delicate fabric, with a golden belt, and on her head a veil. Then I walked round, all through the house, and called my men. I stood beside each one, and roused them with my words. "Wake up! Now no more dozing and sweet sleep. We have to go. The goddess gave instructions." They did as I had said, but even then I could not lead my men away unharmed. The youngest one, Elpenor was his name, not very brave in war, nor very smart, was lying high up in the home of Circe, apart from his companions, seeking coolness since he was drunk. He heard the noise and bustle, the movements of his friends, and jumped up quickly, forgetting to climb down the lofty ladder. He fell down, crashing headlong from the roof, and broke his neck, right at the spine. His spirit went down to Hades. Then I told the others, "Perhaps you think that you are going home, but Circe says we have to go towards the house of Hades and Persephone, to meet Tiresias, the Theban spirit." At that, their hearts were broken. They sat down right there and wept and tore their clothes, but all their lamentation did no good. We went down to our speedy ship beside the sea, despite our grief. We shed abundant tears. Then Circe came and tied up one black ewe and one ram by the ship, and slipped away, easily. Who can see the gods go by, unless they wish to show themselves to us? Book 11. The Dead. We reached the sea, and first of all, we launched the ship into the sparkling salty water, set up the mast and sails, and brought the sheep on board with us. We were still grieving, weeping, in floods of tears. But beautiful, dread Circe, the goddess who can speak in human tongues, sent us a wind to fill our sails, fair wind befriending us behind the dark blue prow. We made our tackle ship-shape, then sat down. The wind and pilot guided straight our course. The sun set. It was dark in all directions. We reached the limits of deep-flowing ocean, where the Cimmerians live and have their city. Their land is covered up in mist and cloud. The shining sun god never looks on them with his bright beams, not when he rises up into the starry sky, nor when he turns back from the heavens to earth. Destructive night blankets the world for all poor mortals there. We beached our ship, drove out the sheep, and went to seek the stream of ocean where the goddess had told us we must go. Eurylochus and Perimedes made the sacrifice. I drew my sword and dug a hole, a cubit widthways and lengthways, and I poured libations for all the dead. First, honey mix, sweet wine, and lastly, water. On the top, I sprinkled barley, and made a solemn vow that if I reached my homeland, I would sacrifice my best young heifer, still uncalved, and pile the altar high with offerings for the dead. I promised for Tiresias as well, a pure black sheep, the best in all my flock. So with these vows, I called upon the dead. I took the sheep and slit their throats above the pit. Black blood flowed out. The spirits came up out of Erebus and gathered round. Teenagers, girls and boys, the old who suffered for many years, and fresh young brides whom labor destroyed in youth. And many men cut down in battle by bronze spears, still dressed in armor stained with their blood. From every side they crowded around the pit, with eerie cries. Pale fear took hold of me. I roused my men, and told them to flay the sheep that I had killed, and burn them, and pray to Hades and Persephone. I drew my sword and sat on guard, preventing the spirits of the dead from coming near the blood, till I had met Tiresias. First came the spirit of my man Elpenor, who had not yet been buried in the earth. We left his body in the house of Circe, without a funeral or burial. We were too occupied with other things. On sight of him, I wept in pity, saying, "Elpenor, how did you come here, in darkness? You came on foot more quickly than I sailed." He groaned in answer, "Lord Odysseus, you master every circumstance, but I had bad luck from some god, and too much wine befuddled me. In Circe's house I lay upstairs, and I forgot to use the ladder to climb down from the roof. I fell head first. My neck was broken from the spine. My spirit came down to Hades. By the men you left, the absent ones, and by your wife and father who brought you up from babyhood, and by your son, Telemachus, whom you abandoned alone at home, I beg you, when you sail from Hades and you dock your ship again at Aea, please, my lord, remember me. Do not go on and leave me there unburied, abandoned, without tears or lamentation, or you will make the gods enraged at you. Burn me with all my arms, and heap a mound beside the grey salt sea, so in the future people will know of me and my misfortune, and fix into the tomb the oar I used to row with my companions while I lived." "Poor man," I answered, "I will do all this." We sat there talking sadly. I on one side held firm my sword and blood, while on the other the ghost of my crew member made his speech. Then came the spirit of my own dead mother, Autolycus's daughter, Anticlea, whom I had left alive when I went off to holy Troy. On seeing her, I wept in pity. But despite my bitter grief, I would not let her near the blood till I talked to Tiresias. The prophet came, holding a golden scepter, and he knew me, and said, "King under Zeus, Odysseus, adept survivor, why did you abandon the sun, poor man, to see the dead, and this place without joy? Step back now from the pit, hold up your sharp sword so that I may drink the blood and speak to you." At that, I sheathed my silver-studded sword. When he had drunk the murky blood, the famous prophet spoke. "Odysseus, you think of going home as honey sweet, but gods will make it bitter. I think Poseidon will not cease to feel incensed because you blinded his dear son. You have to suffer, but you can get home if you control your urges and your men. Turn from the purple depths and sail your ship towards the island of Thrinacia. There you will find grazing cows and fine fat sheep, belonging to the god who sees and hears all things, the sun god. If you leave them be, keeping your mind fixed on your journey home, you may still get to Ithaca, despite great losses. But if you hurt those cows, I see disaster for your ship and for your men. If you yourself escape, you will come home late and exhausted, in a stranger's boat, having destroyed your men. And you will find invaders eating your supplies at home, courting your wife with gifts. Then you will match the suitors' violence and kill them all, inside your halls, through tricks or in the open, with sharp bronze weapons. When those men are dead, you have to go away and take an oar to people with no knowledge of the sea, who do not salt their food. They never saw a ship's red prow, nor oars, the wings of boats. I prophesy the signs of things to come. When you meet somebody, a traveler, who calls the thing you carry on your back a winnowing fan, then fix that ore in earth and make fine sacrifices to Poseidon, a bull and stud boar. Then you will go home and offer holy hecatombs to all the deathless gods who live in heaven, each in order. Gentle death will come to you, far from the sea of comfortable old age, your people flourishing. So it will be. I said, Tiresias, I hope the gods spin out this fate for me. But tell me this, and tell the truth. I saw my mother's spirit, sitting in silence near the blood, refusing even to talk to me or meet my eyes. My lord, how can I make her recognize that it is me? At once he made his answer. That is an easy matter to explain. Whenever you allow one of these spirits to come here near the blood, it will be able to speak the truth to you. As soon as you push them away, they have to leave again. With that, Tiresias, the prophet spirit, was finished. He departed to the house of Hades. I stayed rooted there in place until my mother came and drank the blood. She knew me then and spoke in tones of grief. My child, how did you come here through the darkness while you were still alive? This place is hard for living men to see. There are great rivers and dreadful gulfs, including the great ocean which none can cross on foot. One needs a ship. Have you come wandering here, so far from Troy, with ship and crew? Have you not yet arrived in Ithaca, nor seen your wife at home? I answered, Mother, I was forced to come to Hades to consult the prophet spirit, Theban Tiresias. I have not yet come near to Greece, nor reached my own home country. I have been lost and wretchedly unhappy since I first followed mighty Agamemnon to Troy, the land of horses, to make war upon the people there. But tell me, how was sad death brought upon you? By long illness? Or did the archer Artemis destroy you with gentle arrows? Tell me too about my father and the son I left behind. Are they still honored as the kings? Or has another taken over, saying I will not return? And tell me what my wife is thinking, and her plans. Does she stay with our son and focus on his care, or has the best of the Achaeans married her? My mother answered, She stays firm. Her heart is strong. She is still in your house, and all her nights are passed in misery, and days in tears. But no one has usurped your throne. Telemachus still tends the whole estate, unharmed, and feasts in style, as lords should do, and he is always asked to council meetings. Your father stays out in the countryside. He will not come to town. He does not sleep on a real bed with blankets and fresh sheets. In winter, he sleeps inside, by the fire, just lying in the ashes with the slaves. His clothes are rags. In summer and at harvest, the piles of fallen leaves are beds for him. He lies there grieving, full of sorrow, longing for your return. His old age is not easy, and that is why I met my fate and died. The goddess did not shoot me in my home, aiming with gentle arrows, nor did sickness suck all the strength out from my limbs, with long and cruel wasting. No, it was missing you, Odysseus, my sunshine, your sharp mind and your kind heart. That took sweet life from me. Then in my heart I wanted to embrace the spirit of my mother. She was dead, and I did not know how. 3 times I tried, longing to touch her, but 3 times her ghost flew from my arms, like shadows or like dreams. Sharp pain pierced deeper in me as I cried. No, Mother, why do you not stay for me, and let me hold you, even here in Hades? Let us wrap loving arms around each other and find a frigid comfort in shared tears. But is this really you? Or has the queen sent me a phantom to increase my grief? She answered, Oh, my child, you are the most unlucky man alive. Persephone is not deceiving you. This is the rule for mortals when we die. Our muscles cease to hold the flesh and skeleton together. As soon as life departs from our white bones, the force of blazing fire destroys the corpse. The spirit flies away and soon is gone, just like a dream. Now hurry to the light. Remember all these things, so you may tell your wife in times to come." As we were talking, some women came, sent by Persephone, the daughters and the wives of warriors. They thronged and clustered round the blood. I wanted to speak to each of them, and made a plan. I drew my sword and would not let them come together in a group to drink the blood. They took turns coming forward, and each told her history. I questioned each. The first was well-born Tyro, child of Salmoneus, and wife of Cretheus, Aeolus' son. She fell in love with river Enipeus, most handsome of all rivers that pour water over the earth. She often went to visit his lovely streams. Poseidon took his form, and at the river mouth he lay with her. Around them arched a dark blue wave that stood high as a mountain, and it hid the god and mortal woman. There he loosed her belt and made her sleep. The god made love to her, and afterwards he took her hand and spoke. "Woman, be glad about this love. You will bear glorious children in the coming year. Affairs with gods always result in offspring. Look after them and raise them. Now go home. Tell no one of who I am. But I will tell you. I am Poseidon, shaker of the earth." With that, he sank beneath the ocean waves. She brought 2 sons to term, named Peleus and Neleus, both sturdy boys who served Almighty Zeus. And Peleus' home was on the spacious dancing fields of Iolcus, where sheep are plentiful. His brother lived in sandy Pylos, and she bore more sons to Cretheus, Aeson, Pheres, and Metheon, who loved war chariots. And after her I saw Antiope, who said she slept in Zeus's arms and bore 2 sons, Amphion and Zethus, the first settlers of Thebes, city of 7 gates. Strong though they were, they could not live there on the open plain without defenses. Then I saw Alcmene, wife of Amphitryon, who by great Zeus conceived the lion-hearted Heracles. And I saw Megara, proud Creon's child, the wife of tireless Heracles. I saw fine Epicaste, Oedipus's mother, who did a dreadful thing in ignorance. She married her own son. He killed his father and married her. The gods revealed the truth to humans. Through their deadly plans, he ruled the Cadmeans in Thebes, despite his pain. But Epicaste crossed the gates of Hades. She tied a noose and hung it from the ceiling, and hanged herself for sorrow, leaving him the agonies a mother's furies bring. Then I saw Chloris, who was youngest daughter of Amphion, who ruled the Minyans in Orchomenus. She was beautiful, and Neleus paid rich bride gifts for her. She was the queen in Pylos, and she bore Chromius, Nestor, Periclymenus, and mighty Pyro, who was such a marvel that all the men desired to marry her. But Neleus would only let her marry a man who could drive off the stubborn cattle of Iphicles from Phylace. The prophet Melampus was the only one who tried, but gods restrained him, cursing him. The herdsmen shackled him. Days and months went by, the seasons changed as the year went by, until at last Iphicles set him free as his reward for prophecy. The will of Zeus was done. And then I saw Tyndareus' wife, Leda, who bore him 2 strong sons, the horseman Castor and Polydeuces, skillful boxer. Life-giving earth contains them, still alive. Zeus honors them even in the underworld. They live and die alternately, and they are honored like the gods. And then I saw Iphimedeia, wife of Aloeus, who proudly said Poseidon slept with her. She had 2 sons whose lives were both cut short, Outis and famous Ephialtes, whom the fertile earth raised up as the tallest heroes after renowned Orion. After 9 years, they were 9 cubits wide, 9 fathoms high. They brought the din of dreadful raging war to the immortal gods, and tried to set Ossa and Pelion, trees, leaves, and all, on Mount Olympus, high up in the sky. They might have managed it, if they had reached full adulthood. Apollo, son of Zeus by braided Leto, killed them. They were both dead before down could grow on their young chins, dead before beards could wreathe their naked faces. Then I saw Phaedra, Procris, and the lovely daughter of dangerous Minos, Ariadne. Theseus tried to bring her back from Crete to Athens, but could not succeed. The goddess Artemis killed her on the Isle of Dia, when Dionysus spoke against her. Then came Maera, Clymene, and Eriphyle. Accepting golden bribes, she killed her husband. I cannot name each famous wife and daughter I saw there. Holy night would pass away before I finished. I must go to sleep on board the ship beside my crew, or else right here. I know the gods and you will help my onward journey." They were silent, spellbound, listening in the shadowy hall. White-armed Arete spoke. "Phaeacians, look at him! What a tall, handsome man! And what a mind! He is my special guest, but all of you share in our rank as lords, so do not send him away too fast, and when he leaves, you must be generous. He is in need, and you are rich in treasure, through the will of gods." The veteran Achenius, the oldest man in their company, said, "Our wise queen has hit the mark, my friends. Do as she says, but first Alcinous must speak and act." The king said, "Let it be as she has spoken, as long as I am ruler of this nation of seafarers. I know our guest is keen to go back home, but let him stay till morning. I will give all his presents then. You men will all help him, but I will help the most, since I hold power here." Odysseus answered with careful tact, "Alcinous, king over all the people, if you urged me to stay here for a year before you gave the parting gifts and sent me on my way, I would be happy. It would be far better to reach my own dear home with hands filled full of treasure. So all men would honor me and welcome me back home in Ithaca." Alcinous replied, "Odysseus, the earth sustains all different kinds of people. Many are cheats and thieves who fashion lies out of thin air. But when I look at you, I know you are not in that category. Your story has both grace and wisdom in it. You sounded like a skillful poet, telling the sufferings of all the Greeks, including what you endured yourself. But come now, tell me if you saw any spirits of your friends, who went with you to Troy and undertook the grief and pain of war. The night is long, it is not time to sleep yet. Tell me more amazing deeds. I would keep listening until bright daybreak if you kept on telling the dangers you have passed." Odysseus answered politely, "King Alcinous, it is a time for many tales, but also a time for sleep. If you still want to hear, I will not grudge you stories. I will tell you some even more distressing ones, about my friend who managed to escape the shrieks and battle din at Troy, but perished later, killed in his own home by an evil wife. Holy Persephone dispersed the ghosts of women, and they went their separate ways. The ghost of Agamemnon came in sorrow, with all the rest who met their fate with him, inside Aegisthus' house. He recognized me when he had drunk the blood. He wept out loud, and tearfully reached out his hands towards me, desperate to touch. His energy and strength and all the suppleness his limbs once had were gone. I wept, and my heart pitied him. I cried out, "Lord of men, King Agamemnon, how did you die? What bad luck brought you down? Was it Poseidon rousing up a blast of cruel wind to wreck your ships? Or were you killed on dry land by enemies as you were poaching their fat flocks of sheep or cattle, or fighting for their city and their wives?" He answered right away, "King under Zeus, Odysseus, survivor. No, Poseidon did not rouse up a dreadful blast of wind to wreck my ship. No hostile men on land killed me in self-defense. It was Aegisthus who planned my death and murdered me, with help from my own wife. He called me to his house to dinner, and he killed me, as one slaughters an ox at manger. What a dreadful death! My men were systematically slaughtered like pigs in a rich lord's house for some feast, a wedding or a banquet. You have seen many cut down in war and thick of battle, or slaughtered in a combat hand-to-hand, but you would grieve with even deeper pity if you could see us lying dead beneath the tables piled with food and wine. The floor swam thick with blood. I heard the desperate voice of Priam's daughter, poor Cassandra, whom deceitful Clytemnestra killed beside me. As I lay dying, struck through by the sword, I tried to lift my arms up from the ground. That she-dog turned away. I went to Hades. She did not even shut my eyes or close my mouth. There is no more disgusting act than when a wife betrays a man like that. That woman formed a plot to murder me, her husband. When I got back home, I thought I would be welcomed, at least by my slaves and children. She has such an evil mind that she poured down shame on her own head and on all other women, even good ones. I cried out, "Curse her! Zeus has always brought disaster to the house of Atreus through women. Many men were lost for Helen, and Clytemnestra formed this plot against you when you were far away." At once he answered, "So you must never treat your wife too well. Do not let her know everything you know. Tell her some things, hide others. But your wife will not kill you, Odysseus. The wise Penelope is much too sensible to do such things. Your bride was very young when we went off to war. She had a baby still at her breast, who must now be a man. He will be glad when you come home and see him, and he will throw his arms around his father. That is how things should go. My wife prevented my eager eyes from gazing at my son. She killed me first. I have a final piece of sound advice for you. Take heed of it. When you arrive in your own land, do not anchor your ship in full view. Move in secret. There is no trusting women any longer. But have you any news about my son? Is he alive? Is he in Orchomenus, or sandy Pylos, or with Menelaus in Sparta? Surely my fine son Orestes is not yet dead." I answered, "Agamemnon, why ask me this? I do not even know whether he is alive or dead. It is pointless to talk of hypotheticals." Both of us wept profusely, deeply grieving over the bitter words we spoke. Then came the spirits of Achilles and Patroclus, and of Antilochus and Ajax, who was handsomest and had the best physique of all the Greeks, next only to Achilles the sprinter. And Achilles recognized me and spoke in tears. "My lord Odysseus, you fox! What will you think of next? How could you bear to come down to Hades? Numb, dead people live here, the shades of poor, exhausted mortals." I said, "Achilles, greatest of Greek heroes, I came down here to meet Tiresias, in case he had advice for my return to rocky Ithaca. I have not even reached Greece, let alone my homeland. I have had bad luck, but no one's luck was ever better than yours, nor ever will be. In your life we Greeks respected you as we do gods, and now that you are here, you have great power among the dead. Achilles, you should not be bitter at your death." But he replied, "Odysseus, you must not comfort me for death. I would prefer to be a workman, hired by a poor man on a peasant farm, than rule as king of all the dead. But come, tell me about my son. Do you have news? Did he march off to war to be a leader? And what about my father, Peleus? Does he still have good standing among all the Myrmidons, or do they treat him badly in Phthia and Greece, since he is old and frail? I have left the light of day, and am not there to help, as on the plains of Troy when I was killing the best Trojans, to help the Greeks. If I could go for even a little while, with all that strength I had, up to my father's house, I would make those who hurt and disrespect him wish my hands were not invincible." I answered him, "I have no news to tell about your father, but I can tell you all about your son, dear Neoptolemus. I brought him from Scyros by ship, with other well-armed Greeks. When we were strategizing about Troy, he always spoke up first and to the purpose, unmatched except by Nestor and myself. And when we fought at Troy, he never paused in the great throng of battle. He was always fearlessly running forward, and he slaughtered enormous numbers in the clash of war. I cannot name all those he killed for us, but with his bronze he cut down Eurypylus, the son of Telephus, most handsome man I ever saw, next only to great Memnon. The multitude of Cetians he brought were also killed, since Priam bribed his mother. When we, the Argive leaders, were preparing to climb inside the wooden horse, it was my task to open up and close the door. The other Greek commanders were in tears. Their legs were shaking. Not your handsome boy. I never saw his face grow pale. He had no tears to wipe away. Inside the horse, he begged me to allow him to jump out. He gripped his sword hilt and his heavy spear, so desperate to go hurt the Trojans. At last, when we had sacked the lofty city of Priam, he embarked weighed down with spoils. No sharp bronze spear had wounded him at all. He was unhurt by all the skirmishes endured in war when Ares rages blind. After I told him this, Achilles' ghost took great swift-footed strides across the fields of Asphodel, delighted to have heard about the glorious prowess of his son. Other dead souls were gathering, all sad. Each told the story of his sorrow. Only Ajax kept back, enraged because I won Achilles' armor when the case was judged beside the ships. The hero's mother, Thetis, and sons of Troy, and Pallas, gave the arms to me. I wish I had not won this contest. For those arms Ajax lies beneath the earth, whose looks and deeds were best of all the Greeks after Achilles, son of Peleus. I spoke to him to try to make it up. Please, Ajax, son of mighty Telamon, can you not set aside your rage at me about those cursed arms? Not even now, in death? The gods made them to ruin us. You are our tower. What a loss you were. We Greeks were struck by grief when you were gone. We mourned as long for you as for Achilles. Blame nobody but Zeus. He ruined us, in hatred for the army of the Greeks, and that was why he brought this doom on you. But listen now, my lord. Subdue your anger. He did not answer. He went off and followed the spirits of the dead to Erebus. Despite his rage, we might have spoken longer if I had not felt in my heart an urge to see more spirits. I saw Minos there, the son of Zeus, who holds the golden scepter and sits in judgment on the dead. They ask their king to arbitrate disputes inside the house of Hades, where the doors are always wide open. I saw great Orion, chasing across the fields of Asphodel the beasts he killed when living high in lonely mountains, holding his indestructible bronze club. And I saw Tydeus, the son of Gaia, stretched out 9 miles. When Leto, Zeus's lover, was traveling to Pytho, through the fields of beautiful Panopeus, he raped her. 2 vultures sit on either side of him, ripping his liver, plunging in his bowels. He fails to push them off. I saw the pain of Tantalus, in water to his chin, so parched, no way to drink. When that old man bent down towards the water, it was gone. Some god had dried it up, and at his feet dark earth appeared. Tall leafy trees hung fruit above his head, sweet figs and pomegranates, and brightly shining apples and ripe olives. But when he grasped them with his hands, the wind hurled them away towards the shadowy clouds, and I saw Sisyphus in torment, pushing a giant rock with both hands, leaning on it with all his might to shove it up towards a hilltop. When he almost reached the peak, its weight would swerve, and it would roll back down, heedlessly. But he kept on straining, pushing, his body drenched in sweat, his head all dusty. I saw a phantom of great Heracles. The man himself is with the deathless gods, happy and feasting, with fine-ankled Hebe, the child of mighty Zeus and golden Hera. Around his ghost, the dead souls shrieked like birds, all panic-struck. He walked the gloomy night, holding his bow uncased and with an arrow held on the string. He glowered terribly, poised for a shot. Around his chest was strapped a terrifying baldric made of gold, fashioned with marvelous images of bears, wild boars, and lions with fierce staring eyes, and battles and the slaughtering of men. I hope the craftsmen who designed this scene will never make another work like this. This Heracles at once knew who I was, and full of grief he cried, "Odysseus, master of every circumstance, so you are also tortured by the weight of fortune as I was while I lived beneath the sun? I was a son of Zeus, and yet my pain was infinite. I was enslaved to someone far less heroic than myself, who laid harsh labors on me. Once he sent me here to bring back Cerberus, since he could think of no worse task for me. I brought the dog up out of Hades with the help of Hermes and flashing-eyed Athena." He went back to Hades' house. I stayed, in case more heroes who died in ancient times should come to me. I would have seen the noblemen I hoped for, Pirithous and Theseus, god-born. But masses of the dead came thronging round with eerie cries, and cold fear seized me, lest the dreadful queen Persephone might send the monster's head, the Gorgon, out of Hades. So then I hurried back and told my men to climb on board the ship and loose the cables. They did so and sat down along the benches. The current bore the ship down river ocean, first with the help of oars and then fair wind. Book 12. Difficult Choices. Our ship sailed out beyond the stream of ocean, across the waves of open sea, and came to Aea, home of newborn dawn, who dances in meadows with the beams of Helios. We beached the ship upon the sandy shore, and disembarked, and there we fell asleep while waiting for bright morning. When dawn came, born early, with her fingertips like petals, I sent my men to Circe's house, to bring the body of the dead Elpenor. Quickly we chopped the wood, and at the farthest headland we held a funeral for him, and wept profusely, crying out in grief. We burned his body and his gear, and built a mound, and dragged a pillar onto it, and fixed his oar on top, each ritual step in turn. Circe, the well-groomed goddess, was aware that we were back from Hades, and she hurried to meet us with her slaves. They carried bread and meat and bright red wine. She stood among us, and said, "This is amazing. You all went alive to Hades. You will be twice dead, when other people only die one time. Eat now, and stay here drinking wine all day. At dawn, sail on. I will explain your route in detail, so no evil thing can stitch a means to hurt you, on land or sea." I am a stubborn man, but I agreed. So there we sat and feasted on the meat and strong sweet wine until the sun went down. When darkness fell, the men slept by the ship. Then Circe took my hand and led me off apart from them, and questioned me in detail. I told her everything. The lady Circe replied at last, "That quest is over now. So listen, I will give you good instructions. Another god will make sure you remember. First you will reach the sirens, who bewitch all passerby. If anyone goes near them in ignorance, and listens to their voices, that man will never travel to his home, and never make his wife and children happy to have him back with them again. The sirens who sit there in their meadow will seduce him with piercing songs. Around about them lie great heaps of men, flesh rotting from their bones, their skin all shriveled up. Use wax to plug your sailors' ears as you row past, so they are deaf to them. But if you wish to hear them, your men must fasten you to your ship's mast by hand and foot, straight upright, with tight ropes. So bound, you can enjoy the sirens' song, but if you beg your men to set you free, they have to tie you down with firmer knots. I will not give you definite instructions about which route to take when you have sailed beyond the sirens. Let your heart decide. There are two choices, and the first goes through vast overhanging rocks, which Amphitrite batters aggressively with mighty waves. The blessed gods call these the wandering rocks. No birds can fly through safe, not even doves, who bring ambrosia to Zeus. One dove is always lost in that sheer gulf of stone, and Zeus must send another to restore the number of the flock. No human ship has ever passed there. When one tries to enter, the waves and raging gusts of fire engulf ship timbers and the bodies of the men. Only the famous Argo sailed through there, returning from the visit with Aeetes. The current hurled the ship towards the rocks, but Hera, who loved Jason, led them safe. Taking the second way, you meet two rocks. One reaches up to heaven with its peak, surrounded by blue fog that never clears. No light comes through there, even in the summer. No man could climb it or set foot upon it, even if he had 20 hands and feet. The rock is sheer, as if it had been polished. Right in the middle lies a murky cave that faces west towards dark Erebus. Steer your ship past it, great Odysseus. The hollow cave is so high up, no man could shoot it with an arrow. There lives Scylla, howling and barking horribly. Her voice is puppy-like, but she is dangerous. Even a god would be afraid of her. She has 12 dangling legs and 6 long necks with a gruesome head on each, and in each face 3 rows of crowded teeth, pregnant with death. Her belly slumps inside the hollow cave. She keeps her heads above the yawning chasm and scopes around the rock and hunts for fish. She catches dolphins, seals, and sometimes even enormous whales. Queen Amphitrite, ruler of roaring waters, nurtures many creatures. No sailors ever pass that way unharmed. She snatches one man with each mouth from off each dark, proud ship. The other rock is near, enough to shoot an arrow right across. This second rock is lower down, and on it there grows a fig tree with thick leaves. Beneath, divine Charybdis sucks black water down. 3 times a day she spurts it up, 3 times she glugs it down. Avoid that place when she is swallowing the water. No one could save you from death then, even great Poseidon. Row fast, and steer your ship alongside Scylla, since it is better if you lose 6 men than all of them. I answered, Goddess, please, tell me the truth. Is there no other way? Or can I somehow circumvent Charybdis and stop that Scylla when she tries to kill my men? The goddess answered, No, you fool! Your mind is still obsessed with deeds of war. But now you must surrender to the gods. She is not mortal. She is deathless evil, terrible, wild, and cruel. You cannot fight her. The best solution, and the only way, is flight. I am afraid if you take time to arm beside the rock, she will attack again with all 6 heads and take 6 more. So row away with all your might, and call on Scylla's mother, Critias, great force, who bore her as a blight on humankind. Go fast, before the goddess strikes again. Then you will reach the island called Thrinacia, where Helios keeps sheep and many cattle, 50 per herd, with 7 herds in all. They never reproduce or die, and those who tend them are the smooth-haired goddesses, Phaethusa and Lampetia, the shining daughters of Helios by bright Neaira. She brought them up, then sent them off to live there in remote Thrinacia, to guard their father's sheep and cattle. If you can remember home and leave the cows unharmed, you will at last arrive in Ithaca. But if you damage them, I must foretell disaster for your ship and for your crew. Even if you survive, you will return late and humiliated, having caused the death of all your men. The golden throne of dawn was riding up the sky as Circe concluded, and she strode across her island. I went back to my ship and roused the men to get on board and loose the sternward cables. Embarking, they sat down, each in his place, and struck the grey salt water with their oars. Behind our dark-prowed ship, the dreadful goddess Circe sent friendly wind to fill the sails. We worked efficiently to organize the rigging, and the breeze and pilot steered. Then, with an anxious heart, I told the crew, My friends, the revelations Circe shared with me should not be kept a secret, known to me alone. I will share them with you, and we can die in knowledge of the truth, or else escape. She said we must avoid the voices of the otherworldly sirens, steer past their flowering meadow. And she says that I alone should hear their singing. Bind me, to keep me upright at the mast, wound round with rope. If I beseech you and command you to set me free, you must increase my bonds and chain me even tighter. So I told them each detail. Soon our well-built ship, blown fast by fair winds, neared the island of the sirens, and suddenly the wind died down. Calm came. Some spirit lulled the waves to sleep. The men got up, pulled down the sails, and stowed them in the hollow hold. They sat at oar and made the water whiten, struck by polished wood. I gripped a wheel of wax between my hands and cut it small. Firm kneading in the sunlight warmed it, and then I rubbed it in the ears of each man in his turn. They bound my hands and feet, straight upright at the mast. They sat and hit the sea with oars. We traveled fast. And when we were in earshot of the sirens, they knew our ship was near and started singing. Odysseus, come here. You are well known for many stories, glory of the Greeks. Now stop your ship and listen to our voices. All those who pass this way hear honeyed song poured from our mouths. The music brings them joy, and they go on their way with greater knowledge, since we know everything the Greeks and Trojans suffered in Troy, by God's will, and we know whatever happens anywhere on earth. Their song was so melodious, I longed to listen more. I told my men to free me. I scowled at them, but they kept rowing on. Eurylochus and Perimedes stood and tied me even tighter, with more knots. But when we were well past them and I could no longer hear the singing of the sirens, I nodded to my men, and they removed the wax that I had used to plug their ears, and untied me. When we had left that island, I saw a mighty wave and smoke, and heard a roar. The men were terrified. Their hands let fall the oars. They splashed down in the water. The ship stayed still, since no one now was pulling the slender blades. I strode along the deck, pausing to cheer each man, then gave a speech to rally all of them. "Dear friends, we are experienced in danger. This is not worse than the time the Cyclops captured us and forced us to remain inside his cave. We got away that time, thanks to my skill and brains and strategy. Remember that. Come on then, all of you, and trust my words. Sit on your benches, strike the swelling deep with oars, since Zeus may grant us a way out from this disaster also. Pilot, listen. These are your orders. As you hold the rudder, direct the ship away from that dark smoke and rising wave, and head towards the rock. If the ship veers the other way, you will endanger us." They promptly followed orders. I did not mention Scylla, since she meant inevitable death, and if they knew, the men would drop the oars and go and huddle down in the hold in fear. Then I ignored Circe's advice that I should not bear arms. It was too hard for me. I dressed myself in glorious armor. In my hands, I took 2 long spears, and I climbed up on the forecastle. I thought that rocky Scylla would appear from that direction to destroy my men. So we rowed through the narrow strait in tears. On one side, Scylla. On the other hand, shining Charybdis with a dreadful gurgling noise sucked down the water. When she spewed it out, she seethed. When she spewed it out, she seethed, all churning like a boiling cauldron on a huge fire. The froth flew high to spatter the topmost rocks on either side. But when she swallowed back the sea, she seemed all stirred from inside, and the rock around was roaring dreadfully, and the dark blue sand below was visible. The men were seized by fear, but while our frightened gaze was on Charybdis, Scylla snatched 6 men from the ship, my strongest, best fighters. Looking back from down below, I saw their feet and hands up high as they were carried off. In agony, they cried to me and called my name, their final words. As when a fisherman out on a cliff casts his long rod and line set round with oxhorn to trick the little fishes with his bait. When one is caught, he flings it, gasping, back onto the shore. So those men gasped as Scylla lifted them up high to a rocky cave and at the entrance ate them up, still screaming, still reaching out to me in their death throes. That was the most heart-rending sight I saw in all the time I suffered on the sea. Free from the rocks of Scylla and Charybdis, we quickly reached the island of the god, Hyperion's son Helios, the sun god. There were his cattle, with their fine, broad faces, and many flocks of well-fed sheep. While still out on the sea in my black ship, I heard the lowing of the cattle in their pens, and bleating of the sheep. I kept in mind the words of blind Tiresias the prophet and Circe. Both had given strict instructions that we avoid the island of the sun, the god of human joy. I told the men with heavy heart, "My friends, I know how much you have endured, but listen to me now. Tiresias and Circe both insisted we must avoid the island of the sun, the joy of mortals. They said dreadful danger lurks there for us. We have to steer our ship around it." They were quite downcast by this. Eurylochus said angrily to me, "You are unfair to us, Odysseus. You may be strong. You never seem to tire. You must be made of iron. But we men have had no rest or sleep. We are exhausted. And you refuse to let us disembark and cook our tasty dinner on this island. You order us to drift around all night in our swift ship across the misty sea. At night, fierce storms rise up and wreck men's ships. And how can anyone escape disaster if sudden gusts of wind from north or west bring cruel blasts to break the ship, despite the wishes of the gods? Let us submit to evening. Let us stay here and cook food beside the ship. At dawn we can embark and sail the open sea." That was his speech. The other men agreed, and then I saw a spirit must be plotting our destruction. My words flew out. "Eurylochus, you force me to yield, since I am one and you are many. But all of you, swear me a mighty oath. If we find any herd of cows or a flock of sheep, do not be fool enough to kill a single animal. Stay clear and eat the food provided by immortal Circe." They swore as I commanded. When they finished making the oath, we set our well-built ship inside the curving harbor, near fresh water. The men got out and skillfully cooked dinner. When they were satisfied with food and drink, they wept, remembering their dear companions, whom Scylla captured from the ship and ate. Sweet sleep came down upon them as they cried. When night was over, when the stars were gone, Zeus roused a blast of wind, an eerie storm. He covered earth and sea with fog, and darkness fell down from heaven. When rose-fingered dawn appeared, we dragged the ship inside a cave, a place nymphs danced in, and we moored it there. I gave a speech to my assembled men. My friends, we have supplies on board. Let us not touch the cattle, or we will regret it. Those cows and fat sheep are the property of Helios, the great sun god, who sees all things and hears all things. I told them this. Reluctantly they yielded. But that month the south wind blew and never stopped. No other was ever blowing, only south and east. While the men still had food and wine, they kept clear of the cows. They hoped to save their lives. But when our ship's supplies ran out, the men were forced to hunt. They used their hooks to catch both fish and birds, whatever they could get, since hunger gnawed at their bellies. I strode off to pray, in case some god would show me how to get back home. I left my men behind, and crossed the island, washed my hands, in shelter out of the wind, and prayed to all the gods. They poured sweet sleep upon my eyes. Meanwhile, Eurylochus proposed a foolish plan. Listen, my friends, you have already suffered too much. All human deaths are hard to bear, but starving is most miserable of all. So let us poach the finest of these cattle, and sacrifice them to the deathless gods. If we get home to Ithaca, at once we will construct a temple to the sun god, with treasure in it. If he is so angry about these cows that he decides to wreck our ship, and if the other gods agree, I would prefer to drink the sea and die at once, than perish slowly, shriveled up here on this desert island. All the others agreed with him. They went to poach the best of Helios's cattle, which were grazing beside the ship. The men surrounded them and called upon the gods. They had plucked leaves from oak trees. On the ship there was no barley. They prayed, then killed them, skinned them, and cut off the thighs, and covered up the bones with fat, a double layer, with raw meat on top. They had no wine to pour libations over the burning offering, but they made do with water, and they roasted all the innards. And when the thighs were burned, the entrails sprinkled, they cut the other meat up into chunks for skewers. Sweet sleep melted from my eyes. I rushed back to the ship beside the shore. When I was close, the meaty smell of cooking enfolded me. I groaned, and told the gods, "O Zeus, and all you deathless gods, you blinded my mind with that infernal sleep. My men did dreadful things while I was gone." Meanwhile, Lampetia in flowing skirts ran off to tell the sun god we had killed his cows. Enraged, he called the other gods. "Great Zeus, and all you other deathless gods, you must punish Odysseus's men. They killed my cattle. I delighted in those cows all through each day, when I went up to heaven and when I turned to earth. If they do not repay me, I will sink down into Hades and bring my bright light only to the dead." Zeus answered, "Helios, please shine with us and shine for mortals on life-giving earth. I will immediately smite their ship with my bright thunderbolt and smash it up in fragments all across the wine-dark sea." I heard this from the beautiful Calypso, who had been told by Hermes. Back on shore, beside my ship, I scolded each of them. It did no good. The cows were dead already. The gods sent signs. The hides began to twitch. The meat on skewers started mooing, raw and cooked. There was the sound of cattle lowing. For 6 days my men banqueted on beef from Helios. When Zeus, the son of Cronus, led in the 7th day, the wind became less stormy, and we quickly went on board. We set the mast up and unfurled the sails, and set out on the open sea. When we had left that island, we could see no other, only the sky and sea. Zeus made a mass of dark blue storm cloud hang above our ship. The sea grew dark beneath it. For a moment, the ship moved on, but then came Zephyr, shrieking, noisily rushing, with torrential tempest. A mighty gust of wind broke off both forestays. The tacking was all scattered in the hold. The mast was broken backwards, and it struck the pilot in the stern. It smashed his skull. His bones were crushed. His skeleton was smashed. He fell down like a diver from the deck. His spirit left his body. At that instant, Zeus thundered and hurled bolts to strike the ship. Shaken, it filled with sulfur. All the men fell overboard, and they were swept away like seagulls on the waves beside the ship. The gods prevented them from reaching home. I paced on board until the current ripped the ship's side from the keel. The waves bore off the husk and snapped the mast. But thrown across it there was a backstay cable, oxhide leather. With this I lashed the keel and mast together, and rode them, carried on by fearsome winds. At last the tempest ceased. The west wind lulled. I worried that the south wind might compel me to backtrack to the terrible Charybdis. All night I was swept backwards, and at sunrise I came back to the dreadful rocks of Scylla and of Charybdis, gulping salty water, and overshadowed by the fig tree's branches. I jumped and clutched its trunk, bat-like, unable to plant my feet or climb. The roots were down too low, the tall long branches were too high. So I kept clinging on. I hoped Charybdis would belch my mast and keel back up. She did! As one who spends the whole day judging quarrels between young men at last goes home to eat, at that same hour the planks came bobbing up out of Charybdis. I let go my hands and feet and dropped myself way down to splash into the sea below, beside the timbers of floating wood. I clambered onto them and used my hands to row away, and Zeus ensured that Scylla did not see me, or else I could not have survived. I drifted for 9 days. On the evening of the 10th, the gods helped me to reach the island of the dreadful, beautiful, divine Calypso. She loved and cared for me. Why should I tell the story that I told you and your wife yesterday in your house? It is annoying, repeating tales that have been told before.